Hi, my name is Amy Mazzi, and I know most times you're used to me walking you through every Centurion and Supreme boat we've ever built. But today I'm going to do something a little bit different. I'm going to walk you through where we build these boats. And in fact, we've been building Centurion boats since 1976 here in Merced, California. Believe it or not, 45 years of boat building success came right out of this little agricultural town in the central part of California. I'm going to walk you through the factory today and show you how we do what we do. I don't know if many of you know, but we are owned by Correct Craft. Correct Craft is our parent company, and one of our main charges as a company overall is to make lives better. And we do that by building boats to the glory of God. And you'll see the evidence of that today as we walk through the plant and see every single production process and meet the men and women that build these beautiful boats and see the pride they take in every single step in this process. So let's check this out. Let's see how a Centurion and Supreme boat is built from beginning to end. So the beginnings of the boat building process is one of my favorite parts, and I'm going to tell you why. It's because when we present it to a customer, either on a tour or they see it for the first time, it's the most surprising. The first thing we do on a boat is introduce the color. In essence, we build a boat out of a mold. And even before the color is introduced to that mold of whatever you've picked for your custom Centurion or Supreme boat, we have to prepare that mold so it can accept the color and be able to look as beautiful once we lay it down on the mold as it does when we pop it out. So the way we do that is in a stage called mold prep. Mold preparation. What we do here is we take the molds, be it a mold for a hull, a deck, or even some of our small parts, and we make sure they're pristine, they're beautiful. We introduce a coat of wax, we take that off, and that's every time a mold is cycled or recycled into production. When a mold is first introduced, there's actually 17 hands of wax. That means the mold gets waxed once, that wax gets taken off. It gets waxed again, twice, that wax gets taken off. That happens 17 times. It normally takes about 48 to 72 hours for that process to take place before a mold is ever introduced into production. And then as it's cycled through production, each time it's used, it's brought back into mold preparation and they introduce that wax again. They also identify any anomalies or any imperfections in the mold that could translate to the exterior of the boat and cause us to have to do a repair or cause the exterior finish of your boat to not look as beautiful as we all know it can be. So mold preparation is the beginning process, but probably the most important for the exterior finish of your boat. And we take a ton of time here to make sure that your boat is as beautiful and shiny as it can be. So once we've gone through the mold preparation process and those molds are as pristine as possible, then we come into probably the beginnings of the most artisan part of the boat building process, especially for Centurion and Supreme boats, and that's gel coat. First of all, the mold accepts tape lines. So we tape everything by hand and mask everything by hand. That means when you see those perfectly crisp lines on a Centurion or metal flake next to metal flake, that all starts in the beginnings of the gel coat process with tape lines. And sometimes those tape lines have to be applied to the mold in kind of a precarious position. So these boats, if you haven't noticed, some of them are huge. And when we're getting ready to gel coat these boats, some of these guys and girls have to hang in the mold at their waist and they're taping upside down and backwards. I mean, that's how talented these individuals are. Some of them have been doing it for 20 plus years and they do it extremely well, but make no mistake, this is an art. They're doing it by hand every day. And what happens is not only do they lay those tape lines in and they mask off certain accent areas for the different colors of gel coat, once they start to spray the gel coat, then they roll the mold back out, they let that gel coat cure, remove the mask, they check their lines, they make sure everything is as it should be, then they'll go ahead, slide the mold back into the spray booth, spray the next color, bring the mold back out, let the gel coat cure, check their lines, check the depth. They do this over and over, and in some cases they'll do this 4 different times on one hull or one deck. This process can take as much as 12 hours, depending on the gel coat scheme you choose. Some of our schemes are very, very intricate, but that's what Centurion and Supreme boats are known for. That artisan process and that time that we take during gel coat is immediately evident as soon as you see these boats on the water or even on a trailer. The gel coat process is definitely an art here at Centurion and Supreme, and we take a whole lot of pride in it. So the last part of the gel coat process is really preparing us for the first part of lamination. In the last part of the gel coat process, we add what's called a barrier coat. This is also a gel coat, but it's not used because it's beautiful or it's even seen at all. It's used more for its functionality, and it acts just like it sounds as a barrier between the gel coat and the fiberglass that we're getting ready to introduce. The first part of lamination involves us introducing a skin coat. And this is the first layer of fiberglass that goes into the structure of a Centurion or Supreme boat. This skin coat is a combination of chopped fiberglass and resin that's combined together in a gun and shot onto the boat itself, either the deck or the hull, and then rolled out in all of the little crevices and corners that is on that deck or that hull to make sure there are no air voids of any kind. This skin coat is important for a couple of reasons. The main reason is the finish of the boat. Believe it or not, the exterior finish is really determined by the consistency of that skin coat. It can't be too thick in some areas and too thin in others. It can't have air voids behind it. It has to be extremely consistent in order for the finish of the exterior of the boat to look as perfect as it needs to once the boat is done in production. Now, once the skin coat has been introduced, then we start to reinforce that skin of the boat with layers of engineered fiberglass cloth. This fiberglass cloth is soaked in resin, which gives it a level of rigidity once it cures. So the resin has catalyst introduced to it that makes it harden or almost bake like a cake in the oven. And then after that point, we have some rigidity and some structure to the boat. And in certain parts of the boat, we have as many as 7 layers of engineered fiberglass cloth. And those are normally parts of the boat that are high stress or that need to accept some kind of a bolt-on attachment. For instance, where the tower is mounted, we tend to put a lot of extra layers of fiberglass cloth there, so there's a lot of structure for that tower to be mounted to. Like I said, as many as 7 layers. Or on the keel of the boat. The keel of the boat is a very high stress area of the hull where rough water hits it repeatedly over and over. So we're gonna put 5 layers of engineered cloth there, and so on and so forth. So the transom of the boat, it also needs to be very, very strong. So we add extra layers of fiberglass there. We also laminate in aluminum plates that we bolt to. So whether it be a swim step bracket or something that needs a lot of strength to it, we will introduce even more with those aluminum plates that are laminated into the hull or deck of the boat itself. There's a lot involved in this process, and this is really what determines how strong your boat is going to be. So we take a lot of extra time in lamination to make sure that it has the strength that Centurion and Supreme are known for. Once we've finished with the lamination process, then the shell of the boat has all of the structure it needs, but now we need to add almost a skeleton or a spinal column. We call this the chassis of the boat, and we do this in pull and grind. We add not only the stringer system, but we add the subfloor as well to the boat at this particular part of the process. And to the deck, we add some structure as well to the inside of the deck. Now the deck, the way we build a deck, is called a deck and liner system. What that means is the deck and the liner and part of the floor is all one piece and in one mold. So we just need to add some structure to that with some individual pieces that go inside the deck. But really, the main part of the structural rigidity of the boat comes from the hull. And this point, we're gonna add the stringer system, which in most cases, the stringer system accepts the mounts for the engines and gives that layer of structure to the center of the boat. But what we do that's a little bit different is our stringer system is normally the bottom part of the main part of our ballast system. In Centurion, it can be a ram fill ballast. In Supreme, it's just a large subfloor ballast cavity, but that is the bottom part of the stringer system or the chassis of the boat. Then what we do is we introduce a lid to that, or a subfloor on top of that stringer system that caps off that ballast cavity. It also caps off some other areas of the boat that are then filled with flotation foam. Now, a lot of companies don't necessarily add flotation foam to every boat they built, to the substructure of every boat they built, but we do. It's an additional step that we take, but we feel like it keeps the integrity of the boat, especially when we're talking about floating. It keeps the integrity of the boat intact by doing that. The other piece that not a lot of manufacturers will talk about or showcase at this step is the way that all of these different systems are affixed together. So when we introduce the stringer system or the chassis system, it is glued or welded to the inside of the hull with a product we use called Plexus. This is a product that is a chemical adhesive. So we could call it glue, we could call the process welding. It's really a little bit of both. It changes the molecular structure of the fiberglass and makes two pieces of fiberglass one, where the joint itself becomes stronger than the fiberglass. And we do this with every major system component in the structure of the boat. So we will affix the chassis into the inside of the hull, the stringer system, with Plexus. Then we will take the lids or the subfloor that we put on top of that stringer system, we will affix that with Plexus again. And finally, in a stage that we're going to get to here in a little bit, we'll show you how we join the deck and the hull together with the reverse shoebox fit, and that is held together with Plexus as well. That's what we call unibody construction, because the boat at that point becomes one solid piece. It's not held together with mechanical fasteners. What that does is it makes a rattle-free ride. Whether you're going down the lake on a really rough day or you're pulling the boat on the trailer and the road's less than smooth, you don't have to worry about mechanical fasteners rattling loose. And that's one of the things that makes us very different here at Centurion and Supreme in the way that we build a boat. Another thing that happens at this stage in production, which we call pull and grind, is we not only introduce that structure to the boat, we expose the boat to the light of day for the first time. So we will actually pull or pop the hull and the deck out of the mold at this stage in the production process, and for about 30 seconds, until the static cling attracts every piece of dust to the outside of the boat, you have the most beautiful, radiant, pristine looking exterior or gel coat finish than you've ever seen. It is a high gloss shine. As soon as you pop this thing out of the mold, because of the extra work we did on the front end to condition the mold, you can see your reflection in the side of these boats. And that's what this is all about, is to make sure that the boats we're building are up to your level of expectations or everything you deserve when you're out on the water. So when we talk about a Centurion or a Supreme boat being a custom built boat, that we are a custom boat manufacturer, what we mean is you can pretty much build this boat any way you want it. Not only do we have a ton of options, but we have 30 different gel coat colors that you can choose from on the exterior of your boat. What we don't talk a lot about are the fact that you can choose those same colors on a lot of the small parts and the interior accent pieces that are also built to go along with your boat. I can't tell you how many different little accents that we build for the interior, from the cup holders to a bow piece to a step in for the rear seat of an RI 245. All of these are color matched to your designation. You can also color match your tower shields. And all of these are little small parts that follow your boat throughout production. So they're sprayed at the same time, gel coat wise, as the exterior of your boat, your deck, and your hull. And then they follow that boat throughout the production process. And at the very end, they get installed in the boat itself and everything comes together. So those small parts may seem like a small thing at first, but in the end, those small parts and the fact that they're color matched to your designation are what really make this a custom built boat. So after the lamination process, and we've added the chassis to the inside of the hull, and we've added that reinforcement we need, we've popped the decks and the hulls out of the mold, we're gonna come over here to a part of our process where we take advantage of those pieces of the boat where we added that extra layer of structure, and we're gonna add a lot of the hardware to the boat. And this is not just any hardware. A lot of this is very, very important hardware. Behind me, they're installing the underwater gear. Underwater gear is like your tracking fin, your strut, your rudder. All of those things will be installed at this point, which is very critical. We align them with a laser. We make sure they're in just the right spot on the bottom of the boat, both because we want the boat to perform properly, but also we've put that specific reinforcement into the laminate of the hull, and we want to make sure we're mounting these components in the proper place so they can take advantage of that additional structure. Other things you'll see here installed are lifting eyes. Lifting eye would be if we're going to lift the boat off of the trailer for one reason or another. Those lifting eyes have to be extremely strong. You've normally got one at the bow and two at the transom of the boat on either corner. And those need to be very, very strong so that they can hold the entire weight of that boat, whether you're lifting it off a trailer, you're picking it up on a hoist, those types of things. You'll also see the handles that are mounted on the outside of the boat, normally on the transom on our FI series, and those need to be very well mounted. Swim step brackets, they have to be able to be resilient against a lot of force. And those hardware components get mounted in this stage of production because that's the first thing we need on this boat before we start putting it together with its deck or adding any type of accessories to it. And that's what you see going on here behind me. So right now we're in pre-detail, and this stage in production is kind of how it sounds. This is the predecessor to our final detail of the boat, but it happens right in the middle of production. And I know that seems kind of strange, but at this point, it's our best opportunity to check the exterior finish of the boat for any kind of flaws or something that might need to be fixed. And we can do it before the interior of the boat goes in, before the dash goes on, before we have any opportunity to mess something up or get overspray on something or buffing compound on something that'd be difficult to get it off for the finished product to be just perfect. So in pre-detail, they bring the boats in and they buff the entire exterior, deck and hull, to a high shine. Then they look at it under really high-powered lights, and they make sure that there's no inconsistency in the finish of the boat at all. This could be anything from a gel coat line that may be slightly crooked to a drop of gel coat that's a little bit out of place. Sometimes they circle things that they notice in pre-detail, and honestly, I'm going to tell you a little secret, I don't always see what's wrong. These guys are so trained to look for these little minute imperfections that sometimes to the untrained eye like mine, I can't even see it. But they're gonna fix it anyway because they wanna build a boat that they would want to own, and that's what we do here at Centurion and Supreme. We wanna make sure that everything about this boat is to your expectations and beyond. So the upholstery department is kind of a production process within the production process. While your boat is being built on the regular line, we've got this little assembly line all its own, very special to the interior components of the boat. So this is the upholstery department. What happens here is the entire upholstery of your boat gets built. All of the cushions, all of the side panels, the dash gets covered, the throttle console gets covered. It's a very intricate process. And just like the beginnings of gel coat, this takes a lot of planning. And you kind of put a lot of components together that at the first glance doesn't seem like they go together, but these ladies and gentlemen in this department know exactly how to put that puzzle together, and it comes out with an interior that is not only beautiful, but comfortable and resilient as well. Our interior is made of spraddling vinyl, both for Centurions and Supremes. And on Centurion, you've got a 17 mil top coat on that vinyl. What that gives you is a beautiful finish, but also resilience. It withstands things like harsh chemicals from cleaning. It withstands UV rays from the sun. But also built into that piece of cushion or that upholstery underneath is where the real strength comes in, which is with 3 different densities of foam. So we've got a really rigid, dense foam at the bottom of the cushion. then one on top of that that has a little more give to it, that's a little more comfortable, and then one extremely cushy piece of foam that's right up underneath the vinyl itself. And it gives you not only the comfort when you're sitting on the cushion, it has great bounce back. So when you get up or if you happen to step on a seat, it bounces right back. It doesn't leave an indentation from where you have been. That's really important. Another piece of that strength of our interiors is the stitching. And I know this may sound a little strange, but we use Gore Tenera thread. And yeah, you heard me right, Gore. It's made by Gore-Tex. So it's extremely strong, but it also resists things like harsh cleaning chemicals and even acid rain. And in some instances, the thread itself is going to be even stronger than the upholstery. So it holds that upholstery together without fail. And that is part of the strength of this interior. But beyond that, we do everything start to finish here on the cushions. So you've got all of these pieces of vinyl that are cut out by our CNC machine and in lots of different colors and even different textures. You can choose this for your custom boat. And then they're put together by our sewers with that Gore Tenera thread. And in some places on the upholstery, you've got what we call a half stitch, which means it's stitched twice. In some other high stress areas, you've got a French seam, which is stitched 3 times. So this is pretty labor intensive. Not only are we using high quality material in all of those areas, we are taking extra time to make sure that the upholstery is sewn together in such a way that it fits with the area of the boat it's being installed into. So if it's a high stress area, it's going to get more stitching. You'd be hard pressed in any of our Centurion and Supremes to find one single stitch holding 2 pieces of upholstery together. You're not going to see that in our boats. In most cases, you're going to see 2, and even in many cases, 3 stitches holding 2 pieces of upholstery together, because that's what's going to make your interior in your Centurion and Supreme last the longest and look the most beautiful. Once the vinyl or the skin has been sewn into the pattern that you've designated on your boat order, we're going to pull it and heat that vinyl up with steam so that it stretches a bit. And then we essentially staple it to the underside or a plastic base. And then we cover all those staples up so it looks beautiful, never snags anything. There's also vents that are installed in the bottom of the plastic of the seat that allow the seat to breathe. So if you live in a very humid environment, let's say you're in Florida, it allows that seat to breathe even though there's a lot of moisture that can get into it. And that way you don't end up with mold or something that smells musty when you take the cover off the boat. And we guard against it in that way. But the way we cover these seats, it seems like it's kind of tight, but at the same time, that's what helps with our bounce back and that general longevity and beautiful look of a Centurion and Supreme interior. So right now we're on line 1 in the main part of our factory. And what happens here is you start to get a little bit more pieces every step down the line, and the boat starts to look a little bit more like a boat at this point in the production process. What happens is you'll start to get more hardware added, and we start prepping on line 1 for the engine install. That's a main part of this. And that's going to happen in the hull. But the deck is starting to be prepped for the dash, wiring, ballast hose, heater hose, things like that. And as the boat moves down this production line, it's going to gain more and more of those components. When it gets to the end of line 1, it's going to have its engine in the hull, it's going to have the dash, the throttle, the steering wheel in the deck, and it's going to be ready to turn the corner onto line 2. One of the things that you'll notice about line 1 specifically that's different from other stages in production is the deck and the hull stay together but separate. What I mean there is the deck is worked on separately from the hull, and yet they follow each other down the line. What this allows us to do is get into spaces that we couldn't otherwise access if the deck and the hull were put together. In other words, if I'm installing something, let's say in the observer storage area, like the stereo components, all of our amplifiers, the isolator switch we use to control our batteries, I wouldn't be able to easily get to that if the deck and the hull were fused together already, or if it was capped. So by keeping them separate, I can get a good look at that area of the boat that I'm working on. I can route all the wires perfectly so that when they do need to be accessed for service reasons, they're easy to get to. That's part of the point of this stage in production, is to make it easier for our guys and gals to get to those areas of the boat and get to them with detail and accuracy, rather than having to shove themselves into a storage area to put these components in. So we thought that line 1 really needed a little more detail as far as our description in the production process. Line 1 is so important because it is the first stage of really getting your boat to look like a boat and ultimately having it function like a boat. But as you run this line, at the end, it culminates with the engine is mounted in your boat. And the engines we offer are made by Pleasure Craft Marine. And they make engines that, beyond anything else, perform well, are extremely quiet, and very fuel efficient. And we love to put these engines in our boat. And what happens when we mount them, we use a 6-point mounting structure that allows the engines to run extremely balanced, vibration-free, and the great operation stems from that. But beyond that, this is the part where your boat is getting its soul, its beating heart. At this point in production, it's so important to understand line 1 ends up with an engine in the boat you ordered. And that's why we figured it deserved another mention. With some of our production processes, they have to happen offline. And in an effort for us to employ some lean manufacturing techniques, we have to do this because we can't have everybody on the boat all at one time. There's not room enough for everybody to do every little thing that needs to be done. For that reason, we have sub-assembly stations. These are stations where we put together kits or pieces of the boat that have multiple components that go to them. We get them into one complete package, and then that piece is installed at one time onto the boat. A great example of this is our amp board. If you're ordering a Centurion and you've gotten the CoverFire 2 system, you've got a huge amp board that gets all put together with amps and wiring, and that gets sub-assembled off the production line. We get all of that routed perfectly as far as the wiring goes. That way it's easy to access, easy to work on after the fact, but that whole board gets installed at once. We could say the same for any of our side panels, whether it be a Supreme or a Centurion. A side panel normally includes cup holders, it includes a logoed emblem, it includes a speaker, there's some lighting, there's a lot that goes into that. So that particular side panel gets assembled offline in our sub-assembly station, and then it gets installed as one piece all at once when we get over to line 2. It's differences, maybe small differences like this, that allow us to build the boat efficiently and effectively and have you end up with the boat that's going to operate flawlessly for you on the water. So as we turn the corner from line 1 to line 2, we start to notice that the engine is getting more and more buttoned up, the fuel tank is in, and everything connected into the hull. And on the deck, you start to see some of those sub-assembly pieces that we talked about earlier, like side panels and amp boards getting installed, as well as pretty soon the tower gets installed onto the deck in this particular line. And then as we go further and further down the line, the engine becomes completely installed. And then at the very end of line 2, we put the deck and the hull together. We call this assembly. And we're gonna go over exactly what that means when we affix our deck inside our hull and the boat really starts to look like a boat. So the tower is one of few things that are not made here at the factory in Merced. Our towers are made by Roswell, both for Centurion and Supreme boats, but we still have to assemble those towers. So kind of like some of our other sub-assembly components, the tower gets put together here. And that's because it's got a lot that can go on it. You can get color matched tower shields on it. You can get board racks, several different kinds. You can get a bimini, and we test fit that bimini on it before it leaves here. We also put a speaker system on it that's an optional stereo system you can get in any Centurion or Supreme. But because we do that, we have to have a station where we can put all that stuff on, make sure everything is good to go on that tower. We also make sure the tower is functioning properly. Our drop zone auto tower has a button that makes it go up and down. We test that functionality before we put it on the boat. And then you get to know exactly how that tower is going to function. If it's not functioning well, we don't put it on. We fix it, we wait till we got it working the way it needs to be. But either way, we put this tower together and then it goes on the deck of the boat on line 2. And that's where this boat gets its tower. So towards the end of line 2, this is when you'll see the deck start to have more and more interior pieces put into it. The tower's been installed. Those sub-assembly pieces that we talked about are all in. The engine's in, fuel tank, all the wiring, ballast hose, heater hoses, you name it, and just about everything is inside this deck and hull that needs to be. Now at this point, the only thing left to do is put the deck and hull together. And the way that we do that is through a process called a reverse shoebox fit. So we hoist the deck over the top of the hull and we actually set the deck inside the hull. So instead of a shoebox fit where the deck would go on the outside of the hull or over the top of the hull, it's a reverse shoebox where the deck goes inside the hull. The reason we do this is to add another layer of strength to the hull itself. So the deck ends up pushing out the top of the hull and making it even stronger. Now before we can make that union, we have to make sure that we affix it with that chemical adhesive that I described earlier called Plexus. We put Plexus all along the inside as well as on the bottom where the deck and liner come together with the hull itself. And then those two pieces become one. And at that point, we have full unibody construction. All of the systems that are constructed in the boat become one piece. So there's no mechanical fasteners, it doesn't rattle on a rough day on the water, and it stays together throughout. This is a process that is unlike a lot of other manufacturers, but really when you look at it, our rub rail that goes all the way around our boat is really just to keep you off the dock and for decoration. It's not holding the deck and hull together. We do that with that chemical adhesive, and essentially at this stage in the process, at the end of line 2, your boat is one solid piece. So we finally made it to line 3 in the production process, and the boat looks like a boat. The deck's on the hull, the tower's on the boat. We've got a lot more interior pieces going in, a few more hatch lids and things of that nature. And on this line, you're gonna get trunk lids. You're also gonna get the windshield installed. And then once all of that happens and there's enough on and in this boat to take it to the water and lake test it, that's directly where we're going. So this is lake test. At this point in the production process, we're taking the almost finished boat and putting it through its paces on our test lake. What happens here is we hoist every single boat into our test lake and we check everything about it. In fact, we run through a 60-point check on every single boat. This covers everything from throttle control to plate positioning, steering, ballast. We even test the stereo at this point in production, which is always pretty fun because anytime you can be on the water listening to the stereo in your boat, it's always a good day. Our lake tester behind me, Paco, he runs every single boat through its paces. And he'll be the first one to tell you that everybody thinks they want to be a lake tester for a living, but it gets a little bit, I don't know, uncomfortable when you're out here either in 110-degree heat or like today where it's pretty cold. We lake test every day, rain or shine. These boats are tested to make sure that they operate exactly the way they should for you when you're out on the water. So we're on the home stretch now. We've done just about everything possible to these boats. We've built them, we've tested them, and now the final process is we make them pretty, but also at the same time, we want to make sure that we haven't missed anything or nothing, heaven forbid, has happened during production that has damaged the boat in any way. So not only are we in final finish, where we're going to put all the nice little finishing touches on the boat, like its gator step, its decals, that type of thing, but we are going to look at every square inch of this boat to make sure nothing was missed in being overlooked or nothing damage-wise has happened to the boat in the whole production process. If we do find something like that, either something we missed or something that got damaged, we will fix it here in final finish. We don't want to fix things in final finish. We want it to be beautiful and have nothing wrong with it, but sometimes accidents happen and things get overlooked. So we will take the time here to make sure that everything is perfect before this boat is wrapped and shipped to you wherever you happen to be. Well, we've made it. It's probably about, I would say, 9-10 days after we started in the normal production process, but we've made it to the end. This is the final stage in our production process, and this is loading. This is where the boat that you ordered gets paired with the trailer that comes with it, either an Extreme trailer or an optional Boatmate trailer, and we doll up those trailers, we put the matching gator step on them, we put the wheels that you ordered for that trailer on, we get everything together, and then we'll put the boat on the trailer and put it on a truck and send it to your nearest dealer. As we go through this entire production process, I think it's important to understand that we are making lives better with our boats. That is our goal. That is what we are charged to do as a Correct Craft company. And where that really becomes evident is in our customer service department. We can build the best boat in the world, but inevitably it's going to have some kind of a problem. There'll be something that comes up and you need our help, or your dealer needs our help to get through it and fix that. And we have resolved ourselves to that fact that no matter what, if there's something that needs to be done with that boat, that needs to be fixed on that boat, we're going to be here and help you through that process the best way that we can. And the evidence of that is in the customer service awards that we've received. We have received CSI awards the last 2 years, and we are very, very proud of that fact. And those CSI awards are actually because of you, the boat owner. You submit a survey and you tell us what you think of your boat, what you think of the sales process, what you think of the ownership process, and how we've helped you make your life better through owning a Centurion or a Supreme boat. And we take a lot of pride in that. Our customer service department wants that more than anything else, for you to be satisfied with your boat on and off the water. And all of that happens here in our customer service department. So I hope you understand just how much goes into building Centurion and Supreme boats. And you know that it's just not about this process. It's about the people, the men and women here that put their heart and soul into these boats because they want to make your life better. If you want to check out a Centurion or Supreme boat, visit a dealer near you, or if you're ever in the Merced, California area and you want to come take a tour for yourself, we would love to have you. We are Centurion and Supreme boats. We're making lives better, and we look forward to seeing you soon.